Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Enter the Rift Podcast, Season 2, Episode 2. I'm your host, Kenny. Joining me, es mi hermano, Garrett.
Hello.
And today, on this episode, we are going to be talking about gargoyles, those things you see on the sides of cathedrals, except these ones are real, and they're coming for you.
Not in a sexual way. Or are they? No. Although some of you freaks are probably into that. This is the internet. If it exists, somebody is confusedly aroused to it.
Rule 34.
Don't Google it. If
Anyway,
you are
moving
wholesome.
on.
If you're wholesome, this is a disclaimer. Do not look it up. If you are still pure, guard yourself. Do not be corrupted by the internet if all it's autism.
Oh my God. Anyway, moving on. Back to the topic here. So we're going to go all the way back to 7th century. Based on this legend, there was a village that was being terrorized by La Gargouille, which in the description of the legend is much more of like a kind of like a dragon, not so much what you think now when you hear the term gargoyle. So in this village, it would La Gargouille would terrorize it, and then it eventually got to the point where it demanded a sacrifice every year, to keep it appeased. It wanted, virgin maidens, as all these legends go. But what the village did was like, maybe we'll just dress up this convicted criminal that we were going to put to death anyway, and we'll just feed it to the gargoyle. So that's what they did for a while. It didn't notice it, so it seemed to work. And then eventually, Saint Romanus came, and he said to the town, "Hey, I can subdue this creature." And so,
yeah, but he said it just like that too. Hey, guys, I can take care of this problem. Just slip me some paper.
That's not very saint-like, but anyway,
he's Catholic.
He and a oh my God. Anyway, he and a condemned criminal went to the cave where La Gargouille was said to reside, and then, of course, they stumbled upon the creature, and he pulled out a giant gold cross, and he subdued the monster. He and the criminal brought the creature back to the village, where they condemned it to die by burning at the stake. Now, this was supposedly a fire-breathing creature, so when they burned the creature to death, the only thing that was left was its neck and its head, because it was so used to the heat from the flames, it survived. After their triumph, they took the head and the neck of the creature and mounted it to the church of the village as a giant trophy of saying, like, this is what happened. The evil monster is now vanquished. And now that's the legend of where modern gargoyles or architectural gargoyles came from. So that's why the legend of why you see in all these like Gothic cathedrals, all these monsters that are called grotesque chimeras. It's like a bunch of different parts you see on a monster put together. And the actual architectural function of the gargoyles is basically a water spout to keep rain from being on the walls for too long, so that the walls don't erode as fast.
There you go.
But what if these architectural... That was back in 7th century France. Looking for cases that would be a little bit more recent, the oldest I found was back in the 1880s in Louisville, Kentucky. And this is the story of the Demon Leaper.
So essentially, this is the Kentucky's version of Spring Hill Jack.
Kind of. Yeah, it's very similar, and it's around the same time period.
Ooh, what if it's the same thing? Oh, the world will never know. All that shit.
So there was a Victorian Gothic church built on Walnut Street, and this is a creature that was supposed to be said to be like bat-like with leathery skin, wings, and claws, and was seen to be hopping around and jumping and leaping from rooftop to rooftop, hence the name the Demon Leaper. But the Demon Leaper kind of terrorized people in the downtown area. There was lots of sightings. Some people thought it was like an agile monkey. Other people said it was a guy wearing a suit. But if it's like the 1880s and something's jumping from rooftop to rooftop, I don't think it's a dude in a suit.
More than likely not. Yeah, because this is Louisville, Kentucky, so we're not talking fire escapes and parkour videos like we've seen in early 2000s on YouTube. Right. Yeah, this isn't like the early internet craze of, parkour and urban exploration. This is 1880s Louisville, Kentucky.
Yeah, so who knows what that actually was, but probably not just some dude.
Yeah, although the import of exotic animals was a thing. So for all we know, could have just been some crazy batshit dude who was like, you know what I could really have for a pet right now? It's going to sound crazy, but I think it's a good idea. A baboon. I heard about it from this guy at the pub, and it sounds pretty cool.
Oh, my God. Just strap some wings on it, and there you go.
Yeah, he's like, so I've been working on this thing. It's called a hang glider. And I got this monkey. So I took some pine pitch and kind of smacked it on its back to this old parasail, and I threw it off a roof. And it kind of started running, so it got away.
And thus the legend of the Demon Leaper was born.
All it took was a baboon, some baling twine, and an umbrella, and the legend was born.
If we move about 100 years in the future, a little over 100 years, to 1986, this is where things start to get a little bit more interesting, and where sightings of what, if you just hear the word gargoyle, this is more of what you would think of, like with the stone statues. So people are starting to see things like this. One of the biggest sightings that made its rounds, I should say, was the NASA gargoyle, or it's also called the Houston Gargoyle. So this story happened to NASA archivist Frank Shaw, and it happened on a windy night in 1986. So at the end of his shift, Frank Shaw was heading to his car, and he happened to look up at one of the massive buildings at the NASA base in Houston. And he said what he saw was a bizarre creature that was jet black in color and had huge bat-like wings that reminded him of a gargoyle. He froze in place while this beast was staring at him. Shaw reported that he felt like the creature was actually enjoying the fear and panic he was experiencing. After a moment, the gargoyle spread its wings, and then with each kind of wing beat, he could hear each flap of the wing with a crackling sound, and it flew off into the night after a while. So Shaw rushed home. He let his family know what he saw, but his family felt that, maybe you didn't see what you thought you did. It's probably for the best if you kept quiet about this, but the story just kept eating away at him. And eventually he spoke to one of his supervisors at work about it, and supposedly the supervisor informed him that he wasn't the first one to report such things. So they've already been dealing with this thing for a little while. They've just been keeping it on the down low. And in fact, that there's a file that was made to track all of these sightings of the gargoyle, and that Shaw's report followed the death of 2 German shepherds at the NASA Center. And before leaving this meeting with his supervisor, the supervisor warned Shaw to keep quiet about the incident. So this incident was reported to the paranormal researcher Nick Redfern back in 2006 by Frank Shaw's daughter. So after this was reported, Frank had already passed. So who knows how true this is? I really don't know. It's just like a secondhand story. But he was just leaving work one day, and he looked up, and there was this bat-like humanoid gargoyle creature looking and just watching him. And I think it's weird how that it seemed to be enjoying all the fear that Frank was experiencing.
Okay. So it sounds very similar to like the sightings of the Chicago Mothman in O'Hare Airport. It sounds very similar to that, it seems. Especially with the whole, like, he mentioned it to his supervisor, and the supervisor, related back to him that, yeah, you're not the first. And it's been like a reoccurring event.
Yeah, it's a little odd. And in Nick Redfern's book, the monster book, around page 308, he even relays this story again. And in that book, he calls it like the Houston Mothman.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah, I don't know what it is with these winged humanoids, but it's a little weird.
Yeah. Oh.
If we move then to a eyewitness account, that this one happened in Minnesota. So this happened to Renee Rude back when she was a small girl, around 8 or 9 years old. And this was around 1976. So back then, her mom and stepfather, they would take drives a lot at night just for something to do. And one night while she was driving, she was just looking around out the window, and she saw this creature. She said, while I was driving along, I saw a creature that looked like this. And she has a picture of a pretty typical statue of a gargoyle. She said it was crouched high in a half-dead oak tree that stood on the bank of a pond. The moon was full or close to it, and the wind was still. I had enough time to see the creature, look for its reflection in the polished mirror of water beneath it, and then look back up to confirm what I was seeing. I suppose I was wondering if it was a weirdly contorted part of the tree itself. Then the damn thing moved. At first I thought it was going to dive into the pond, but then I realized it was just turning away from the road. As we set past it, I twisted around in my seat to keep it in sight. I swear its eyes flared red in our taillights. Then I saw it had wings floated down its back. She says, I estimated it to be about the size of a large dog or a small goat, though the shape was wrong. It was holding itself in a hunched, compact, almost huddled position. It had arms and legs shaped like those of a monkey or a lemur, but much thicker and bulkier.
See? Told you. It's a baboon that's been duct taped to a parasail.
She goes, a primate of some sort seemed most likely, but I was puzzled because its body didn't look furry, but rather tough and scaly like an alligator.
Shaved monkey with alopecia and and psoriasis with duct tape.
And then oh my God. And then she says, then when I caught a glimpse of its wings, I thought they looked like a bat's. And then she goes, of course, I tried to tell Mom and my stepdad I've seen something, but when I described it, they chuckled and refused to go back to look for it. So, yeah, another case of where this is how a lot of these sightings seem to be, is like they're very short. They only last for a couple of moments, and then they kind of disappear. But this one was definitely much more like your typical gargoyle of like that you think of, that you see statues of. Is it misidentification? Who knows? The author even thought maybe she could be misidentifying it, and she wanted to make sure she wasn't just seeing like, part of the tree that she thought was a creature. But then the thing moved.
We've all been driving early in the morning or late at night and have like come across like, okay, you're going around a turn on a country road, and then you see like a gnarled up old tree, and at first you're like, ooh, what the hell is that? Especially around in rural areas, like particularly where I live. I mean, you'll go around with a blind turn on a hill, and somebody has a reflector, on a tree, so you don't, kiss it going fitty. And sometimes those will freak you out, especially if you're real tired or possibly being unresponsible and under the influences of substances while driving. But every once in a while you'll have one of those sphincter clenching moments, and then you're like, what is it? What is it? And then it's a bicycle reflector laying next to a tree.
Yeah. Continuing on with these sightings in the Midwest, if we go to 1999 in Rockford, Illinois. So this site was reported on phantomsandmonsters.com. So this incident occurred during the summer in the early evening when there was a full moon. So there's another little connection there. The trio was relaxing on the friend's front porch which was located on Willard Avenue near Auburn High School and Cottonwood Airport in Rockford, Illinois. During a conversation, the friend stopped talking and began to stare across the street. The witness looked in the same direction and noticed a dark gray winged humanoid slowly flying near a large tree. The witness stated that it seemed like the being was in slow motion as it glided towards the tree. The friend said, "Do you see that?" The witnesses were close enough to notice that it had small cat-like ears and intense red eyes. There were no other facial features visible. They said it was quite muscular throughout the body and had 2 defined legs and that had arms attached to the wings. She stated that the winged humanoid was 7 feet in length with a wide wingspan. The wings were like those of a bat with a leather-like membrane. Apparently, the being perched in the tree, but again took flight. This is when the witness's husband took notice. The winged being was gliding towards a pair of large pine trees as its legs were kicking up and down while in flight. The being flew between the 2 pine trees and then suddenly vanished. The witness said gargoyle, and then her friend acknowledged, yes, a gargoyle. After the incident, the witness stated that they seemed to have forgotten the encounter until a year later when she asked her friend if she remembered the sighting. Her friend said yes, she had, but had also forgotten the incident until that point.
You just casually just like look over at your friend and, gargoyle? Yeah, gargoyle. Just, yeah. I know it said both women, but I was just, grizzled. I'm just imagining like 2 old timers sitting on a porch, smoking cigarettes, drinking coffee, just looking out there going, gargoyle. Yeah.
Yeah, but could you imagine like you're just chilling and on your porch and you look over and you see that thing across the street perched in a tree?
Yeah, and then you just go about your day like nothing happened. Apparently you forget about it for like a year. Just, oh yeah, you remember that one time? Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, big flying thing. Yeah, it looked like a monkey with a parasol tuck tape to it. Yeah.
But yeah, I thought that was pretty interesting, besides how apparently nonchalant they were. 2 things that I thought were pretty interesting on this case is, one, that its arms were attached to the wings. So it's not like the other sightings of gargoyles where the wings are separate from the arms. This one was much more, I guess, bat-like in that, like how an actual bat is. And then
it was just a dude who got on Ozempic.
Ears.
He was just on Ozempic. He had some loose skin. He took a staple gun, flying squirrel. Just went for it. Just went for it.
Oh my God. But yeah, I thought that one was interesting.
Yeah. Especially, my favorite part still with this is just a casual, gargoyle.
Just looking over and there it is.
And then just later on, like a year later, just like, oh yeah. Remember that time we saw that thing? It's just like, haven't thought about it. It's just like, casual, just, you know what? I do remember that. Just like, hey, you remember that one time our buddy slipped down and fell and we all laughed at him, like in high school? Like, yeah, I remember that. It was just casual. Just like, bring up, like, so you know what I was thinking about earlier today? You remember that time when we saw that giant flying bat creature? Just,
yeah.
You know, as one does.
As one does.
Most stories, it's almost more believable because they're so nonchalant about it. Because every story you read on the internet or listen to on podcast or whatever media you're consuming at the time, and they're always like, oh, and it flew over the car, and I was so terrified. And it says just like, yeah, I looked over, I saw it, it was flapping, and it looked pretty weird. It almost looked like a monkey with a freaking bunch of duct tape and an umbrella to it. But yeah, I just mentioned it to my buddy, and he was like, yeah, I saw that too. And then we didn't talk about it for like a year. So, just as one does.
Oh my God. So our next case is also still in Illinois, and this one took place in Jolet.
Gillette toilet.
Yeah, Jolet, Illinois.
Sounds like a shithole. It's Illinois.
And this took place in 2010. So I believe I may have seen one about 10 years ago in far west Jolet. It was about 2 a.m., end of March, beginning of April. I was watching TV with the window open slightly. I kept hearing a muffled cry, almost like a woman crying in the distance.
It's Illinois. It happens. Just a distant scream. Ah! Help! Help! It's Chicago. It's fine. It's fine. Close the window. I don't want to listen to that bitch yapping.
Oh my God. I kept hearing a muffled cry, almost like a woman crying in the distance. I finally decided to take a look and see what it was. I was looking all over the backyard and neighboring yards, but didn't see anything. When I was about to give up, I heard it again. I noticed that it was coming from above me. I looked up and noticed something about 4 feet tall sitting on the peak of the house behind me. I grabbed my phone to take a picture, but when I was about to take a picture, it turned its head to look at me. It scared the crap out of me. Then it dropped like it fell. Right before it hit the ground, its wings came out and it swooped away. I couldn't believe how big the wingspan was.
Well, how big was the wingspan? Well, roughly, it looks like $2 Dollar General umbrellas.
Oh my God. The wingspan was reportedly around 10 to 12 feet long, which, if you remember from last episode where we were speaking about the man bat, the Wisconsin man bat, which there seems to be a lot of similarities with this in that regard, is that its wingspan was also about 12 feet, and the reports, they all seem to be about 6 to 9 feet in length, like height-wise. So are what people seeing as these gargoyles, yeah, is it just a smaller, immature man bat? Is it the same creature? Who knows?
Or is it possibly a monkey with umbrellas duct taped to it, or a crackhead who also may have items duct taped to him? Perhaps some trash bags, maybe an old trench coat he got at the Goodwill. One may never know.
Okay, so if we move forward a year into 2011, this took place in Butler, Pennsylvania. So this is on Phantoms and Monsters, as well as the last two stories were. So this report was sent originally to researcher Stan Gordon, and then the report was also given to Lon Strickler. On March 21st, 2011, I was contacted by a witness who reported having an encounter with a very strange creature during the early morning hours of March 18th, 2011. This incident occurred on a rural road in Butler County between Chicora and East Brady. The witness, a businessman passing through the area, stated that this was one of the freakiest things I've ever saw, and it made the hair stand up on the back of my neck. The man told me that he was driving down the road when from about a quarter mile away, he observed something on the right side in a grassy area. His first thought that it was a deer. The driver stepped on the gas to move closer to get a better view.
Might be a deer. Gun it.
Yeah.
Yeah, might be a deer. Looks a little like, does it have chronic wasting disease? I don't know. Let's hit the accelerator and run up on the animal that might be skittish and run into your way.
Right. He observes, when he got from about 50 yards away, he observed something that appeared to be hunched down and then stood up. The driver then observed a very tall, muscular creature. At this point, the driver had his high beams on and watched as the creature walked in front of a yellow reflective road sign, then crossed the 2-lane road and 3 long steps and continued into a wooded area. What he saw was a humanoid figure that stood at least 8 feet tall that appeared to have smooth, leather-like skin that was either a darker tan or a light brown color. The creature never looked at the witness and was only observed from its side. The head appeared to be flat in the front section and then rounded out. At the top of the back of the skull, it was like one of those aerodynamic helmets. The top was not quite a point, but looked like a ridge on the top of the head. The face was flat and the eyes were not clearly defined, but the man thought that they might have been pointed in the corner. The ear that was observed on the left side was long and flat and came up and back and was pointed backwards like a flap. The arms were muscular and a little longer than that of a human. The hands looked more like a claw, but the number of fingers was unclear. One physical trait that stood out were the extremely muscular legs. The witness stated that it was hard to explain, but the legs did not move like that of a human, and they looked like they bent backwards.
Ew.
The witness also saw what appeared to be wings on its back, which were tucked into its body, with the wingtips extending towards the side of its head. There were no unusual sounds or smells noticed during the observation, which was estimated to have been about 7 to 8 seconds long. As the motorist approached the location where the creature had entered the woods, it could no longer be seen. The next day, the witness decided to drive back to the location of the encounter to look for any evidence. The ground conditions weren't suitable for tracks and nothing was found. The witness did, however, measure the road sign that the creature had walked in front of. The sign was just over 8 feet high, and the head of the creature was estimated to reach about 4 inches above the sign. So this one is a little different because, one, this one was actually noted to be walking.
Yeah, and a lot
and
taller.
Two, like, yeah, it's about like 1 to 2 feet taller than what is typically depicted. And the colors are a little different. A lot of the other ones seem to be black or gray, and this one's like a light tan to a darker brown color. So that's a little interesting.
Yeah. Well, now, was this sighting during the day?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, did the other ones mention time at all?
The others have been in the evening to at night, and this one was in the early morning.
So I could see possibly, if under low lighting conditions, something that was like a kind of like an ashy tan color appearing darker.
True. Sometimes low light does mess with your colors and how you see
Plus,
things.
maybe he just needs lotion. Maybe he's, just a little ashy. You never know. Maybe it's just that crackhead I said about earlier with the trench coat and some duct tape. He just didn't have lotion on.
And he had those stilts on. That's why the guy thought he had like the weird spring stilts, and that's why he thought his legs bent backwards.
Yeah. See, now I could actually see that something like this happening. Okay, let me paint this picture. You are, let's see, you're in a very rural area where you'll see this, or B, you'll possibly be within a major metropolitan area. So picture this. Hear me out. A crackhead with drywall stilts standing around smoking crack, as one does, while in a old London fog rain jacket.
Oh my God.
So, you got that tan khaki color, he's kind of ashy looking. He's pretty messed up, kind of a creature feature. He got them weird looking legs. He's pretty tall. And this one didn't fly away, right? Just kind of looked at him, eyeballed him.
No, this one just kept walking.
Yeah. So there you go. Just, crackhead with some drywall stilts, possibly a trench coat. Not wings, but, close enough. Maybe he's one of those creepy homeless dudes who has the trash bags, like, taped around his legs. There you go. Now, the flat ears part, that's perhaps he was wearing 2 tube socks taped to his head. Now, really, use that imagination here and picture what I am describing. Now, imagine seeing that early in the morning while driving in your car. One would be puzzled.
I almost feel it's more plausible that it was a weird creature and not some strange homeless man.
I have met some strange homeless people in my days, and I would not put it past them for them to be cracked out on drywall stilts. And for those who are listening only, because this is not a video podcast, I am doing the speculative pyramid hands while speaking. Saying, well, possibly it is a crackhead on drywall stilts.
Oh, God. Going back to Illinois. On this next sighting, this took place right outside of Des Plaines, Illinois. And this took place in a summer evening in 2013. So the witness says that my son and I were leaving my friend's house who lives right outside of Des Plaines, Illinois. Her driveway is about a quarter mile long. There are no lights along the driveway. About halfway to the road, my son yelled out, "What's that?" I was startled and slammed on my brakes. "What are you yelling for?" "There, in the tree." I answered, "What are you looking at?" I glanced up into the tree and noticed talons wrapped along the large lower branch. The tree was thick with foliage, so it was hard to make out what it was. I figured it was just an owl or an eagle. But as we watched, the tree began to move, like there was something very heavy in the tree. The headlights were pointed directly at the tree, so there was some light. Then suddenly, a human-like figure dropped from the tree and landed right on the ground in front of us. It was dark gray in color. As I looked at the clawed feet and muscular legs, I noticed the bottom tip of folded wings behind it. My eyes followed the human-like body, which looked like dark gray skin. The head and face literally reminded me of a gargoyle. Snarling features and evil looking. The eyes were large and reflected an orange color. I believe it also had short horns on the side of the head. OMG, what is that? At the same time, my son begged me, let's go, let's go. The beast opened its huge wings and literally took off up over the car. I called my friend on my cell phone as we were driving home. I told her what we witnessed, and she was totally dumbfounded. She told me that she had never seen anything like that. While driving, I asked my son what he thought he saw. He called it a Batman. I simply responded, okay, but I thought gargoyle or some other mythical creature. I was deeply affected by this beast and have carried this odd feeling that it would remember us. Now I've been reading about the sightings in Chicago and wonder if there's a connection. I fear that a terrible event may occur in the city. My son is in college in Chicago, and I work downtown. I am scared for us. I swear what I described is true. I wish to remain anonymous, and I don't seek any recognition. So the son, he called it a Batman.
Right.
Man-bat.
Yeah.
Very similar. But obviously, I don't think any of the man-bat descriptions, anything had horns on its head.
No, I don't believe any did.
So that's pretty interesting. Like, could you imagine you're just driving from your friend's house and then like a stereotypical gargoyle drops out of a tree right in front of your car and then like looks at you for a second and then flies over?
Yeah, that's pretty sketch.
Going to a different part of the country here, this is a sighting that was reported from Tampa, Florida. So I had an incident in Tampa, Florida, a winged creature sighting. Driving to work early in the morning. It wasn't dark, but not quite daylight out. Going around a curve in a road, knowing I'm coming up to a light, it's always red and I always have to stop. For one of the only times I can remember, I somehow was the first vehicle stopped at the intersection. I knew I needed to keep an eye on the light, so I'm looking up, waiting for it to turn green, and I just happened to catch something moving along to my left. It was flying from left to right, south to north. I won't lie, I did not get to see it for long, but in that 1 to 3 seconds, it was as clear as I could possibly imagine that it looked just like a gargoyle. Large bat-like wings, hands crutched up tight in front, legs kind of crutched up as well, gliding along. The wings didn't flap. Now, I don't claim to have the world's greatest eye or be an expert on all things relating to distance, but I know what it looked like. I'm certain of its size, which would be that of about a large man. And I know it wasn't that far in front of me. I had a lot of objects in my field of view to help get a good perception. Could it have been anything else other than a gargoyle? Of course. I'm not crazy. That's just what it looked like.
So
this one, not too climactic or dramatic or anything, but like just spotting it while on your drive.
Now,
is
mentioned like being shocked at first one to be at like the intersection at the light and all that stuff. So that kind of makes me think it's more of a highly populated area for traffic. I wonder if anybody else noticed it.
Who knows? I mean, if other people were on the road, they may have, but how many people are actually like looking up when they're driving?
True.
And especially in the morning, they're probably trying to get to work, so they're probably not looking at the sky.
Now, are there any large bats native to Florida?
Not that I'm aware of, but definitely none the size of a large man.
Well, duh. But they mentioned that their eyesight was not the best, and they're not the expert on judging distances. Now, they did say there's things in the foreground and the background that they could measure with, roughly. But would it be possible? Again, this is Florida, so you got to use Florida logic with this. You got some drug dealer who got a fox fruit bat as a pet because he's slinging that fent. And he thought it'd be cool because he was high at the time. So he bought this fruit bat on like, I don't know, torrent or something. And so he's got a large Australian fruit bat. He's slinging that crack. And he's smoking that fent. Shooting that shit. Whatever. Snorting it. And just as one does. Regardless, he gets high. Leaves the door open. Fruit bat, go out that door. Now you got this bitch saying she saw a gargoyle, but really it's just a fentanyl slinging crackhead. He got a fruit bat on the dark web, and it flew out the window or door.
God.
Or, and hear me out again, monkey on a hang glider.
Oh my God.
Well, you think about it. So you get cracked out, you get in that flow state while you're on the crack, and you start going through the Leonardo da Vinci catalog or whatever hell inventions, and you start looking at his old hang gliders that look like that bat shit that you saw on Assassin's Creed Brotherhood, and you start getting creative with some old hefty trash bags and some balsa wood, and we're in Florida, so there'd be some monkeys running around sometimes, because, like after Katrina and shit, and, all that stuff went out, and there's been sightings of different primates and stuff in the Everglades. Who's to say? A crackhead, again, because it's just more amusing. And I don't think anybody sober really has the work ethic for this project. But let's just say crackhead goes out in the Everglades, smoking his shit, as one does. Finds one of the monkeys. Takes said monkey and beats it over the head, knocks it out. Takes some hefty trash bags because, man's a scientist. He's over here reading Leonardo da Vinci's stuff, and he's getting creative in that flow state while he's cracked out. And he takes some balsa wood because he's a hobbyist as well, and he likes to make model airplanes. So he recreates Leonardo da Vinci's glider, the back glider, and he duct tapes or super glue, perhaps, one does not know. But the logic of a crackhead is off the wall. So he takes it, and in the inner machinations of his mind, he has this ideal piece of work he wants to work on. He's in the flow state on the crack, and he lets it go, and this bitch sees it.
Oh my God.
Just saying. It's a possibility. It's out there.
That's quite the hypothesis there.
Hey, if I could think about it, who's to say some crackhead didn't?
Oh my God.
That was on the spot.
Brainius.
Quite indubitably.
One thing of note that I thought was interesting was how some of these monsters or gargoyles have been flying, but they haven't been flapping their wings. Obviously, like the NASA gargoyle.
Yeah.
He said it was flapping and he heard the flapping sounds. It was made like weird crackling noises when it was flying. But a lot of them, like the one in Rockford and a lot of these others, and throwing back to some of these man-bat sightings, is the wing, they just fly or even take off, but the wings don't move. They just seem to glide somehow.
True, which is very prevalent in even a lot of the Mothman stories as well, even going back to like some of the really old ones. They don't really mention flapping or any sort of thing. It's just like the wingspan opens and it just poof takes off.
Yeah, I don't know what it is with these flying humanoids, but like they don't, a lot of them don't seem to need to flap their wings. They can just yeet themselves into the sky.
I have a theory. Crackhead on a hang glider just ate beans, ripped ass, and went wee! Possibly with a monkey. Okay, so you go back to that crackhead in Florida in Tampa. He took that little crack monkey, and he shot it up full of the fent and gave it a bunch of Heinz beans. And then he shook it up like a soda. It farted, and he let go, and it went wee! Kind of like when you're a kid messing around with like one of them, the little airplanes that you wind up with the rubber band. Except it was with beans.
God. Overall, though, what are your thoughts on what people are seeing besides crackhead monkeys with hang gliders and umbrellas and duct tape?
My honest opinion is that if they saw anything at all, if these stories are like at face value, maybe a different dimensional being or something like that, if at all, because the lack of physical evidence to any of sightings or any other humanoids that be flying around Chicago area or Tampa, like with the crack monkey. Yeah, honestly, I don't know is a way that I would answer that. Yeah, I do not know. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, I definitely think that people are seeing something. Now, whether or not that's just a hallucination or a ultradimensional being or some kind of unknown cryptid, I'm not sure.
Or a
But
crack-induced inventor who was, getting creative with
yeah,
drywall stilts and different primates and duct tape.
God. But yeah, so I think people are seeing something. The question is what are they seeing? And I don't really know. But all I do know is that if I had some of these experiences myself, I don't know if I would be as nonchalant as the people in Rockford and be like, oh, a gargoyle.
Yeah, just look up and is that a gargoyle? Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Gargoyle.
Yeah, just one word answers. Just gargoyle. Yeah, gargoyle.
That's just like kind of crazy, but
Yeah,
interesting anyway. So overall, reading all of these sightings of gargoyles from all the way back to the 1800s to the original, more dragon-like being in the 7th century, I think all these sightings are very interesting. At the very least, they're good entertainment, if nothing else.
yeah. It gave me the nice mental image of a crackhead playing with duct tape and shoe glue and a monkey.
As did everyone else now.
Yeah. Perhaps not even a monkey. What's not to say he didn't have a raccoon with mange or that he covered with nair and then went from there.
Oh my God. But yeah, it's very interesting. And I thought the similarities of the Wisconsin man-bat sightings and these gargoyle sightings were pretty interesting. I think there's probably some kind of connection there. And I don't know what it is with the Midwest and these flying humanoids. Wisconsin, Illinois, Minnesota.
Yeah.
Like, what is with all this? What's flying around over there?
Crackheads on hang gliders.
All right. If you've enjoyed this episode of Enter the Rift podcast,
Otherwise known as my autistic rants.
that too. Share it with your friends. Leave a comment. Let us know what you think. Have a good one.
Peace.